Welcome to Heartland Dual Sport. In today's video, we're going to be answering some of your questions from comments on previous videos. So let's get to the video. Welcome to Heartland Dual Sport. In today's video, we're going to be leaving Michigan. We're leaving Michigan and we're heading back to East Texas where our home is. And this is going to be a multitude of a 2-day video. But what I wanted to do today in today's video, we're going to answer some of your questions that viewers have asked previously in other videos. In today's video, in the background, you're going to be seeing images of us packing up from Michigan. Our first day traveling back home, we got off to a late start because, again, one of the riders in the group had a flat tire on his rear. After we got camps actually wrapped up and packed up on our bikes and we were all ready to head out is when we realized, hey, we're going to have to do another tire change. So we ended up pulling out the tube, going on into repairing it, and then hitting the road. More importantly, we have two questions from previous videos that we're going to answer today. Number one is going to be from Martin Curie, wondering if you checked your oil consumption, gone down any. The KLR is on my short list for a new bike. Thanks for sharing your trip, and I look forward to the next one. Martin, number one, I want to start off with saying thank you for taking the time to watch our videos and leave comments. As all of you know, that any time that you leave a comment or like the video, all that stuff just helps our channel and it helps us get in front of other viewers. And we put this channel together to help other viewers and help people just like you. So again, thanks for your question. Here's my short answer. Without a microscope, I've ran this bike to the East Coast and I've ran it all the way to Michigan and back home. I have not had to add any oil, and like I say, without the use of a microscope or some sort of really detailed scale, I've not noticed a drop of oil missing. I'm riding this bike like I'm 51 years old and I am in no huge hurry. I ride the bike like I need it to last me the rest of my life because I don't want to buy another adventure bike. My bike's not leaking any oil. It's not burning any oil. And again, thank you for your comment. Our next question is going to be, and I'm just going to post it down below because that's going to be the gist of this video. And it's basically from a comment recently on the 5 things that I hate about the Africa Twin. If you guys have been following along in our channel for a long time, you know that we used to own an Africa Twin. And I loved that bike. I'm not ever going to talk bad about that bike because it's a great bike. But to answer the question, and I've got it, I'll go ahead and post it up here so you guys can see it. But he asked if I was completely happy with the KLR. And the answer is yes, I'm 100% happy with my KLR. I'm going to give you a quote of the day because it will help you better understand why I'm 100% happy with this bike, especially knowing that I used to have the Africa Twin. And basically the quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm not going to get it right. You guys know my memory's horrible. But the quote is basically this: a man will never cross a river in the same place or the same time ever again. And essentially what the quote is saying is, as you go through life, as a full-grown man or even a young man, it doesn't matter, and you can cross a river in a certain spot, you will never be the same man that you were back then. So even if you cross the river in the same spot, you're not the same man. The same is true for the river. It's always evolving. So even if you cross the river in what you believe to be the same spot, the river is always constantly changing, just like us as humans are always changing. So with that said, we need to go back and you need to understand a little bit about me. When we had the Africa Twin, I was working full time. I had an unlimited access to extra jobs and a lot more money than I currently have. As many of you know, if you've been watching our video, you know that I'm a retiree. As a retired officer, I get half of my pay that I was making when I was working full time. Along with that, they take out 1/3 of my paycheck insurance costs for me and my wife. So my budget is significantly less now than it was when I had the Africa Twin. And I think that's one of the things that you have to understand when I say I'm completely satisfied with this bike. Back when I had the Africa Twin, I never actually owned it outright. I had a payment on that, and I would work extra jobs or whatever else to make that payment. I mean, of course, it fell into the budget, but in my mind, as long as I was making more money than what we actually were making at work, any of my extra job money was more of my toy fund, if you will. As a retired person, I do have a few things going for us still. We've got the leather shop, and then, as many of you know, I'm going to try to start the Heartland Moto Gear website and maybe offer some stuff there, whether it be t-shirts, the leather notebooks, that type of stuff. And I'm going into this kind of backwards, but I want you to understand, number one, the Honda Africa Twin is a great bike. It's also much more expensive. So where my complete happiness and complete content comes with the KLR, I don't owe anybody a dime on this bike. I love this bike. In my mind, the KLR will do everything that the Africa Twin will do, with the exception of top end speed. Okay, so here's your scenario. If you guys go way back, you're going to see a video of me and Austin and several guys. We're going to be doing what they call the Oklahoma K Trail, and it is an adventure trail where a guy named Buck was with us, and he was on the Yamaha Tenere. The Tenere is very comparable in size to the Honda Africa Twin, especially when it first came out. Both bikes are known to be top heavy. They've got a lot of power, and unfortunately for Buck, he got into a situation where he hit some rocks, hit the gas, and he basically flipped his bike over, causing him significant injuries. I was on my DRZ 400, Austin was on the KLR, we had a DR 650, another KLR, and again, Buck was on the biggest bike in the group. And this was day 1 or 2 of the trip, and he actually broke some stuff in his leg. And guys, I know that we helped him get off of the mountain and helped him get a trailer and get him into a vehicle. Other than that, I can't swear to you exactly what his injuries are, but I'm telling you that because it's very similar. This bike right here is never going to flip over on you. You're not ever going to loop this bike out. I don't think if you had it revved up at 100%, you might be able to do it. But if you're just riding along and hit a bump and you hit the throttle, it's not ever going to loop out on you. So in my mind, again, minus the speed, the KLR is everything that I need it to be. Okay, to make this video a little bit simpler, I've made a list of 10 things that I love about the KLR, and it helps define my complete happiness, if you will. The number one thing that attracted me to the KLR to begin with is especially with the adventure model bike. You can get this bike for less than $8,000. It's already got the saddlebags on it, and you're ready to start making adventures. When you compare that to the Honda Africa Twin, and especially the last time I was at the dealership, I looked at one the day that I picked up my KLR. That bike's starting for around $12,000, and you still have to go ahead and buy a pannier rack, the panniers, if you're going to buy an Africa Twin, and that's where you kind of have to compare these two bikes. This bike comes set up. You don't have to buy nothing other than put gas in. Number two is it's so much cheaper to ride this bike than it is the Africa Twin, and when I say that, you've got to factor in the totality of everything. Everything that you want to purchase aftermarket accessories for the Honda Africa Twin is almost twice what it's going to cost you for the KLR. Now there are going to be some things like the oil filter and all that stuff is going to be comparable, but I'm talking about aftermarket parts. When you can go out and buy IMS foot pegs for this bike for less than $100. I think the foot pegs I put on my Africa Twin was $250. I can't remember for sure, but I know they were much more expensive. The pannier racks, this bike's already got them. The pannier racks I bought from TourTech. Yeah, I know that's expensive. The crash bars I bought from TourTech, I know it's expensive. I went with the Moscow Moto Gear. Yeah, it's all expensive. And fortunately for me, I've still got my Moscow Moto bags, and I've got a lot of things that I've already paid for, so I don't have to repurchase them. The cost is a huge deal for me as far as my complete happiness. And then the other thing that the kind of the elephant in the room is sometimes less is more. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about less horsepower or if you're talking about less things to go wrong with the bike. This bike is so simple, it's so bare bones. If something happens to this bike, I promise you I can tear this engine down and fix it. I've worked on the old KLR. We did the doohickey. We did so many of the other things they tell you got to do, which I'm not convinced to this day that I believe there's a problem with the spring, and I'll say that. Otherwise, I'm going to leave that alone. The bike's cheap. It's cheap to operate. Everything on the controls is simple. There's not a whole lot to go wrong. You don't have to worry about the switch getting really, really wet, and now all of a sudden your ABS ain't working, or your traction control mode button ain't working. There's so many more things that can go wrong with all the fancier stuff, and I just like to keep it simple. Again, for the money, the KLR will do everything that the Africa Twin will do, other than win the Cannonball 800. I'm not planning on running in the Cannonball 800, so again, the top end speed for the Africa Twin, it will smoke this bike. I mean, it'll flat smoke it. But I'm not racing the bike. I mean, I'm being honest and fair with myself. I didn't buy this bike to race. I bought this bike to go out and look at the old back roads and take my time, stop, take pictures, smell the roses, you know, that kind of stuff. You can compare the Africa Twin to the KLR, and you can also say they're both going to get very similar results on the gas mileage. A lot of times you'll notice guys that are complaining about the gas mileage, they may be riding it harder. Guys that are getting great mileage are probably riding it like I am. We're not in a big hurry. We're just doing what the bike was designed to do. This bike wasn't designed to do some of the things that the Africa Twin will do. 90% of the riders will never ride the Africa Twin to its capabilities, and that's just being honest and fair with everybody. 90% of the riders aren't going to ride the KLR to its full capabilities, so you might as well, I mean, to be fair, we're buying this bike to ride, go have adventures, and do laid-back stuff. One thing I will point out about the Africa Twin, everybody knows that the KLR is considered to be top-heavy. I do not believe that this bike is any more top-heavy than the Africa Twin. In fact, in my mind, I feel like this one's top weight is a little bit closer to the center of gravity, if you will. I believe the Africa Twin, when it's got a full tank of gas, guys, that thing is pretty top-heavy bike, and I know that's one of the complaints with the Tenere as well. And I'm not knocking these bikes. I know they're awesome bikes. Again, guys, if you take anything away from the video, I'm answering a question from a viewer who wants to know how I could be completely satisfied with the KLR over the Honda Africa Twin. And I'm just telling you some things that I know from owning both bikes and having ridden them thousands of miles. This bike is not any heavier. Where you might, if you think you're going to feel a weight difference between the two, is basically the lack of power that this bike has over the Africa Twin, and that has nothing to do with the top heavy or center of gravity. That's just the KLR is just a much simpler, much smaller CC engine bike. Again, just to kind of wrap this up, I can't express it any more than this, and this bike meets my expectations. I don't expect this bike to be a dirt bike, so I don't expect it to excel on single track. I don't expect this bike to be a BMW 1250, so I don't expect it to run 90 miles an hour with cruise control on all the way to Alaska and back. This bike is not an Africa Twin, and I'm not ever going to pretend it is. I'm just telling you, for me, the bike meets my expectations, and it does everything that I need it to do, and I couldn't be more satisfied. And to answer your question, and again, thanks for the question, is yes, I'm completely 100% satisfied with this bike. Again, you have to go back to the quote at the original part of this video. We're all different people, and as we age, our needs are different, our expectations are different. And when I was younger, I needed to feel the speed. I'm not going to lie, guys. I come from a long line of sport bikes, and I used to do a lot of, by the grace of God, I never got hurt, and I never got in trouble on them. But there's a lot to be said about that style of riding versus where I'm at in my age now. I love the adventures, I love the back roads, and I like it just as much now in the person that I am today as I did as a young man riding the R6, the Ducati, and those sport bikes, because I had a lot of fun on them as well. Again, guys, we appreciate your likes, comments, and subscribes. If you guys have any questions that you would like for us to cover in the future, leave a comment down below. We love reading your comments. We try to do our best to reply to everybody in a timely manner, and that's one of the things that I love about our channel. And being a smaller channel, we're able to actually take the time and answer the questions and do that kind of stuff as well. So again, guys, we appreciate your likes, comments, and subscribes. If if you have a question about your KLR or a KLR specific question, please feel free to comment down below and we may pull yours next. We're going to be starting a series of videos after we get home from Michigan on the general maintenance. We're going to be doing the sprocket changes, and we've got enough tread on our tires. We're probably going to go ahead and keep them on for one more adventure. As you know, we're probably going to hit another coast this year. So again, guys, we appreciate your likes, comments, and subscribes. May you have a blessed week, and let's go ride.